Imagine for a moment that your mind is a powerful engine, full of ideas, dreams, and thoughts, but your mouth is the key that unlocks those ideas into the world. Many people feel trapped because their brain is racing with thoughts in English. Yet when the moment comes to speak, their mouth freezes. That hesitation, that fear, that doubt, it feels like a heavy wall between who you are inside and what you can show outside. But here's the truth. Your brain and your mouth can be trained just like muscles. When a child learns to walk, they fall again and again, yet they don't stop trying. In the same way, your mouth might stumble over words, your tongue might feel heavy, your sentences might break, but every single attempt is training. Every word you speak in English, even if it's broken or imperfect, is a step forward. Your brain already has the power. It understands more than you think. But the bridge between the brain and the mouth must be built with practice. Speak out loud, even when no one is listening. Whisper your thoughts to yourself in English when you're walking alone. Repeat simple sentences again and again until your mouth learns the rhythm. Don't just keep English locked inside your head, set it free. Think about this. When you first learned your native language, you didn't memorize grammar books or practice tenses. You copied, you repeated, you made mistakes, and slowly your brain and mouth worked together until it felt natural. The same process can happen with English if you allow yourself to be fearless. Yes, people might laugh. You might feel embarrassed, you might hear your own mistakes echo in your ears, but every mistake is proof that you are learning. Every stumble is a sign that your brain and your mouth are connecting. And one day, without even realizing it, you will open your mouth and the words will flow, smooth, confident, and powerful. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for perfect grammar. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now. Speak now. Train your brain by feeding it English daily, and train your mouth by letting it practice without fear. Your future self will thank you for the courage you show today. Because English is not just a language, it is a bridge. And once you train your brain and your mouth to work together, that bridge will take you anywhere you dream to go. When it comes to speaking English fluently, nothing plays a bigger role than consistency. Think of it like watering a plant. If you give a plant a huge amount of water only once a month, it won't survive. But if you water it a little every single day, it will grow strong, green, and healthy. The same principle applies to your English-speaking journey. A lot of people start with excitement, practicing for hours in 1 or 2 days, but then they stop for a week or a month. That irregular rhythm makes the brain forget, the mouth stiffens up, and confidence starts to fade away. The real secret is not doing a lot in one go, but doing a little bit every day, building a routine where your brain and mouth slowly adapt and get used to English as a natural part of your daily life. Consistency builds habits, and habits shape fluency. Imagine if you decide to practice speaking English for just 15 minutes every day. At first, 15 minutes might feel small, but over the course of a month, that's more than 7 hours of focused practice. And in a year, that's 90 hours. Now compare that to someone who practices for 2 hours once in a while, but only 5 or 6 times in the whole year. Who do you think will grow faster? The person who makes English a daily companion, even in small doses, will always be ahead because the brain doesn't forget when it is constantly reminded. Consistency also helps reduce fear and hesitation. The biggest reason people feel nervous when speaking English is because they treat it as something unusual, something outside of their daily comfort zone. If you only speak English once in a long while, it feels strange, it feels heavy, and your mind panics under pressure. But if you are used to speaking a little every day, even if it's just talking to yourself, then English stops being foreign. It becomes normal. The more often you hear yourself speak in English, the more your brain accepts it as natural, and the less fear you feel when you're in front of others. That confidence doesn't come in one day. It grows like drops filling a jar, little by little, through consistent effort. Another beautiful effect of consistency is how it improves memory and strengthens the connection between your brain and your mouth. When you hear a new word in English, your brain stores it, but if you don't use it again for weeks, it slowly fades away. However, if you consistently repeat and apply new words in your speaking practice, your mouth starts to remember how they feel when spoken, your tongue learns their rhythm, and your mind starts retrieving them faster. This is why people who practice daily often surprise themselves by speaking without thinking too much. The brain and mouth automatically cooperate because they've been trained together consistently. Consistency doesn't always mean sitting with books or formal lessons. It can be flexible and enjoyable. For example, you can make it a habit to describe your daily routine in English every morning. Talk about what you're going to do today, what you're feeling, or even what you're wearing. At night, you can make it a routine to reflect on your day in English, what you did, what you learned, what made you happy, or what challenged you. Even while walking or cooking, you can narrate your actions in English, like, I'm cutting the vegetables, I'm washing the dishes, or I'm going to call my friend. These small daily habits might feel simple, but their power lies in repetition. Slowly, without even realizing it, English becomes part of your lifestyle instead of something separate that you only study. Think about professional athletes or musicians. They don't become great by practicing once in a while. They train daily, repeating drills, working on their basics, polishing their skills. Speaking English is no different. Every day you train your brain to think in English and your mouth to produce the sounds, you are building strength. Just like a runner builds stamina by running every day, you build fluency by speaking every day. Skipping practice for too long makes the muscle weaker, but consistency makes it stronger and sharper. Many learners also underestimate the emotional power of consistency. Every time you stick to your practice routine, even for a few minutes, you feel a sense of achievement. That feeling motivates you to keep going. On the other hand, if you practice randomly and skip for long stretches, guilt and frustration can take over. You start feeling like you're failing, and that discouragement pushes you even further away from speaking practice. By being consistent, you not only grow your skills, but also protect your mindset. The habit itself becomes a reminder that you are moving forward, that you are serious about your journey, and that you are not giving up on yourself. The best part is, consistency doesn't demand perfection. You don't need to speak perfectly every day. You just need to show up every day. Even if some days you stumble over words, even if some days you only practice for a few minutes, it still counts. It still strengthens the bond between your brain and your mouth. Over time, these small moments add up, and the results will amaze you. When people begin their English speaking journey, one of the biggest mistakes they make is trying to jump straight into complex sentences, heavy vocabulary, or fast speech. They want to sound fluent immediately, and when they can't, they feel disappointed and lose confidence. But the truth is, fluency is not about starting big, it's about starting small. Just like a baby doesn't run on the first day they learn to walk, you cannot expect yourself to speak perfectly formed sentences from day one. Progress comes from taking small, steady steps that grow naturally into bigger achievements. Starting small means giving yourself permission to use simple sentences and easy words without feeling ashamed. If all you can say is, I am going to the market, or I am happy today, that's already a victory. These small sentences may seem basic, but they are the foundation on which you will build your fluency. Too often, learners think that short and simple speech is a sign of weakness, but in reality, it is the smartest way to train your brain and mouth. The simpler you begin, the stronger your base becomes, and the easier it is to expand later into more advanced structures. Think about building a house. You don't start with the roof, you start with the bricks at the bottom. Each small brick is essential, and without them, the house cannot stand. The same is true for English speaking. Every small word, every short sentence, every simple phrase is a brick. Over time, those bricks come together to form a strong wall of fluency that cannot be shaken. If you try to skip the bricks and build only the roof, your structure will collapse. Another advantage of starting small is that it reduces pressure. When you try to speak in long, complicated sentences, your mind feels stressed. You worry about grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation all at once, and as a result, you freeze. But when you allow yourself to use short, easy expressions, the pressure disappears. Your brain can focus on one thing at a time, and your mouth can move more freely. This reduces fear and builds confidence. The more comfortable you feel, the more naturally you will begin to extend those small sentences into longer ones. Let's imagine a real example. Suppose someone asks you, "How was your day?" Instead of trying to answer with a long explanation like, "My day was really busy because I had a lot of work at the office, and then I had to cook dinner when I got home, and now I'm really tired, but also happy because I finished everything," you can simply say, "My day was busy. I worked a lot. I am tired now." At first, that might sound too short, but it communicates your idea clearly. And here's the magic. When you practice these short answers consistently, your brain naturally starts adding details over time. A few weeks later, without forcing it, you might find yourself saying, "My day was busy because I worked a lot in the office. Now I feel tired but happy." The growth happens step by step, and it happens naturally because you gave yourself space to start small. Starting small also teaches you to focus on what really matters: communication. Fluency is not about big grammar or fancy words. It is about expressing yourself clearly. If you can say, "I am hungry," and people understand you, that is successful communication. Later, you can upgrade to, "I'm starving," or "I could really use something to eat." But those improvements come with time. What's important is that you train your brain and mouth to get comfortable speaking at all, even if it's with the simplest words. Once you master clarity in small expressions, fluency in bigger expressions becomes much easier. There's also a psychological benefit to starting small. Every time you speak a short sentence successfully, you feel a little spark of achievement. That small success gives you energy to keep going. If you try to do too much too soon, you're more likely to feel frustrated and give up. But when you keep your goals small and realistic, you celebrate more wins, and those wins keep you motivated. Learning to speak English is a marathon, not a sprint. The small steps you take today are what carry you across the finish line tomorrow. You can make starting small a daily habit. For example, pick 5 easy sentences you will use every day. Say them out loud in the morning, during lunch, and at night. Sentences like, "I am feeling good today," "I am going to work," "I like this food," or "The weather is nice." These may look too simple, but they are training your mouth and brain to work together. Over time, those sentences will expand naturally. "I am feeling good today because I slept well," or "I like this food, it tastes delicious." You don't need to force the growth. It happens naturally when you start small and stay consistent. Even the most fluent speakers you admire once started with the simplest of sentences. No one wakes up fluent overnight. They built their fluency step by step, word by word, sentence by sentence. That is the real secret. Don't be afraid of small beginnings. Small beginnings are not weak. They are powerful. They are the seeds of fluency, and when you plant those seeds with patience, they grow into a tree of confidence and strength. One of the greatest obstacles that holds people back from speaking English fluently is the fear of making mistakes. The moment they open their mouth, they begin worrying. What if I say the wrong word? What if my grammar is incorrect? What if people laugh at me? This fear becomes so strong that many people decide to stay silent rather than take the risk. But silence never teaches you anything. Mistakes, on the other hand, are your best teachers. Every mistake is a step forward. Every error is proof that you are trying, and every stumble is part of the path toward fluency. Think about how you learned your first language as a child. Did you speak it perfectly from the beginning? Of course not. You mispronounced words, you used the wrong grammar, you mixed up tenses, and sometimes people didn't even understand what you were saying. But nobody told you to stop. In fact, people encouraged you, smiled at your attempts, and corrected you gently. That's how you learned. If you hadn't been allowed to make mistakes, you would never have become fluent in your native tongue. So why should English be any different? Mistakes are not signs of weakness, they are evidence of progress. When you make a mistake in English, your brain pays attention. It notices what went wrong, and it stores that information. The next time, your brain remembers and tries to do better. This is how learning works: trial, error, correction, improvement. If you avoid mistakes by staying silent, your brain misses the chance to learn. That's why the people who progress fastest are not the ones who are perfect, but the ones who are brave enough to be imperfect in front of others. Embracing mistakes also helps you overcome fear. Fear only grows stronger when you try to avoid it. But when you face it directly, when you speak, even though you know you might be wrong, you take away its power. The first time you make a mistake in front of someone, it feels embarrassing. The second time, it feels less. And by the 10th time, it feels normal. You stop caring so much about what others think, and you start focusing on expressing yourself. That shift in mindset is what brings true fluency. Another important truth is that people do not judge you as harshly as you think. Most listeners don't care if your grammar is 100% correct. They care about whether they can understand your message. If you say, "Yesterday I go to market," instead of "Yesterday I went to the market," people will still understand you. Your communication is successful, even though the grammar is not perfect. And with time, the grammar will improve, but only if you keep speaking and allow yourself to learn through mistakes. In fact, sometimes mistakes create the most memorable learning experiences. Imagine you mispronounce a word and your friend laughs kindly before correcting you. That moment might feel a little uncomfortable, but guess what? You will never forget that word again. It becomes engraved in your memory because you experienced it, not just read it. This is why mistakes are not failures. They are lessons disguised as errors. You should also remember that every fluent speaker you admire has gone through the same process. They all made mistakes, they all felt embarrassed, and they all stumbled many times. The only difference between them and those who never achieved fluency is that they didn't stop. They accepted mistakes as part of the journey and kept moving forward. If you look at English speakers from around the world, you will notice that even native speakers sometimes make grammar mistakes or mispronounce words. So why should you expect yourself to be perfect? Language is not about perfection, it's about connection. A practical way to embrace mistakes is to celebrate them instead of hiding them. Whenever you notice yourself making an error, don't get angry or disappointed. Smile and say, "Good, I just learned something new." Keep a small notebook where you write down the mistakes you make most often. Review them, practice them, and notice how they reduce over time. This turns mistakes into a tool for growth rather than a source of shame. You can also change the way you talk to yourself about mistakes. Instead of saying, "I am bad at English," say, "I am learning," and mistakes mean I am improving. This shift in self-talk makes a huge difference in your confidence. Instead of running from mistakes, you begin to see them as friends, guiding you along the path to fluency. The more you embrace mistakes, the faster your brain and mouth will connect. You will stop hesitating before speaking. You will stop overthinking every word, and you will allow your natural rhythm to come out. That freedom is where real fluency lives. One of the most powerful, yet underrated ways to train your brain and mouth to speak in English is by speaking to yourself. At first, it may feel strange. You might think, "Why should I talk to myself? Isn't that silly?" But this simple habit can transform your fluency faster than you can imagine. The truth is, you don't need a classroom full of people or a fluent partner to begin practicing. You already have the best practice partner with you every moment of the day, and that's yourself. When you speak to yourself, you remove the pressure of being judged. No one is there to laugh at you, no one is waiting to correct you, no one is evaluating your grammar. It's just you and your voice. This safe space gives you freedom to experiment with words, try new sentences, and even make mistakes without fear. The more comfortable you feel expressing yourself alone, the more confident you'll feel when speaking with others. Confidence doesn't appear suddenly in public. It grows in private, in those quiet moments where you allow your voice to flow without holding back. Speaking to yourself also helps bridge the gap between thinking in English and actually speaking it. Many learners can understand English when reading or listening, but when it comes to speaking, they freeze. That's because their brain may know the words, but their mouth has not practiced producing them. By talking to yourself regularly, you train your mouth to catch up with your brain. You give your tongue, lips, and voice the chance to become familiar with English sounds so that when you need to speak in front of others, the words don't feel stuck inside. You can make self-speaking a natural part of your daily life. For example, when you wake up in the morning, describe what you are doing. "I am brushing my teeth, I am making breakfast, I am putting on my shoes." These small sentences may sound simple, but they are powerful because they connect your real actions to English words. You are not just memorizing, you are living the language. Later in the day, you can narrate your thoughts. "I feel happy today. I am worried about this meeting. I hope everything goes well." By connecting your emotions to English, you train your brain to express feelings naturally in another language. Another way to practice speaking to yourself is by imagining conversations. Pretend you are talking to a friend, a teacher, or even a stranger in English. Ask yourself questions and then answer them out loud. For example, "How was your day?" "My day was good. I studied, I worked, and I learned something new." These imaginary dialogues prepare you for real conversations because they help you rehearse possible situations. When the real moment comes, you will feel less nervous because your brain and mouth have already practiced. You can even use a mirror to take this practice to the next level. Stand in front of your reflection and speak as if you are talking to another person. Look into your own eyes, notice your expressions, and practice your body language. This builds self-awareness and confidence. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but over time, you will notice that speaking in English becomes more natural. Your reflection becomes both your practice partner and your coach. One of the greatest benefits of speaking to yourself is that it creates consistency without relying on others. You don't have to wait for a conversation partner, a teacher, or a class schedule. You can practice anytime, anywhere, while walking, while cooking, even while lying in bed. This makes English a daily habit, not just a subject you study once in a while. And the more it becomes a habit, the faster your fluency grows. Speaking to yourself also helps you discover your weak points. When you try to express an idea and find that you don't know the right word, you can note it down and learn it later. In this way, self-speaking reveals the exact gaps in your vocabulary or grammar. Instead of guessing what you need to study, your practice shows you directly what is missing. This makes your learning process more personal and effective. It's also important to remember that speaking to yourself doesn't have to be limited to simple sentences. As you grow more confident, you can challenge yourself with storytelling. Try telling yourself a short story in English, maybe about something that happened yesterday or a memory from your childhood. At first, you might struggle to find the right words, but that struggle is exactly what trains your brain. Slowly, your ability to organize thoughts in English improves, and your sentences become longer and more natural. The beauty of this practice is that it turns ordinary moments into learning opportunities. Waiting for the bus? Talk to yourself about your plans for the day. Stuck in traffic? Describe what you see around you in English. Feeling emotional? Express those feelings in English words. Every moment becomes a chance to train your brain and mouth, and every word you speak, even if it's only to yourself, brings you closer to fluency. Over time, you'll notice a powerful change. The sentences that once felt forced will begin to flow effortlessly. The hesitation that once stopped you will fade away. And when you finally speak with others, your brain and mouth will work together smoothly because you have already practiced countless times with yourself. If speaking trains your mouth, then listening trains your brain. The two are deeply connected, and one cannot grow strong without the other. Many learners focus only on speaking practice, but they forget that speaking well comes from listening well. Active listening is the secret ingredient that fills your mind with the rhythm, sounds, and patterns of English. The more you listen, the more natural your speech becomes, because your brain starts to absorb the music of the language. Listening actively means paying attention, not just hearing words. When you listen to English songs, movies, podcasts, or conversations, don't let the sounds pass in the background like noise. Focus on how the words are pronounced, how the sentences flow, how the speaker uses pauses and emotions. Every detail you notice becomes food for your brain, and your brain will feed those details back to your mouth when you speak. Just as children learn to speak by listening to their parents, you too can build fluency by surrounding yourself with English sounds every single day. One of the biggest benefits of listening actively is that it sharpens your ear to real English, not just textbook English. In books, everything looks neat and perfect, but in real life, people speak fast, use contractions, and sometimes drop words. For example, instead of saying, "I'm going to," many people say, "I'm gonna." If you only rely on written English, you might freeze when you hear such expressions in conversation. But if you listen actively to how people really talk, your brain becomes familiar with these natural shortcuts. Later, when you speak, you'll automatically use them too, sounding more fluent and confident. Listening also helps you expand your vocabulary without memorizing long lists. When you hear a new word in a movie or podcast, your brain connects it with the situation or the tone in which it was used. This makes the word stick in your memory much more strongly than if you just wrote it down on paper. And because you hear the pronunciation directly, you learn not only what the word means, but also how to say it correctly. Over time, your vocabulary grows naturally, and you start using new words in your own sentences without even realizing it. But listening actively doesn't mean you must understand every single word. At the beginning, it's normal to miss a lot. Don't let that discourage you. Even if you only understand a few words or the general idea, your brain is still learning. Slowly, piece by piece, your comprehension will grow. Remember how babies listen to thousands of words before they say even one. They don't understand everything, but they are training their brains. You are doing the same when you expose yourself to English sounds regularly. A powerful way to practice active listening is to repeat what you hear. For example, if you're watching a short video in English, pause after a sentence and repeat it out loud. Try to copy the tone, the speed, the pronunciation. This shadowing technique forces your mouth to move the same way as the speaker, training it to match the natural flow of English. At first, you might struggle to keep up, but with practice, your brain and mouth will begin to synchronize with the rhythm of the language. You can also use subtitles as a tool. Watch a show or movie with English subtitles, and as you listen, notice how the words you hear match the words you read. This builds a strong connection between sound and spelling. Later, try watching without subtitles to challenge your ears. Switching between these two modes helps you progress step by step until you can follow along without any support. Active listening can also be personal and emotional. Choose content that you enjoy, topics that make you curious, stories that inspire you, or speakers that motivate you. If you love sports, listen to interviews with athletes. If you enjoy motivation, listen to English speeches that lift your spirit. When your heart is engaged, your mind pays more attention, and when you pay more attention, you remember more. Language is not just about practice, it's about passion. If you listen to things you love, learning becomes a pleasure instead of a burden. Another benefit of listening is that it improves your sense of timing. In English, words are not spoken like blocks of grammar. They are like waves, flowing up and down with stress and intonation. By listening carefully, you notice which words are emphasized, which ones are softer, and how emotions are expressed through voice. When you start speaking, this rhythm will naturally come out of you. That's why people who listen a lot often sound more fluent, even if their vocabulary is simple, because their speech carries the natural music of English. Listening actively also makes you a better communicator. Speaking is not only about saying what you want, it's also about responding to others. When you listen carefully, you learn how people ask questions, how they react, and how conversations move. This prepares you for real interactions, where fluency is not about delivering a perfect speech, but about keeping the conversation alive. Make listening a daily ritual. Play a podcast while walking, listen to audiobooks while traveling, or watch short English videos before bed. Even 10 minutes a day can make a huge difference. The goal is to flood your brain with English sounds until they become familiar. Over time, you will notice something magical. Words that once felt foreign will suddenly sound natural, and sentences that once confused you will start making sense. And slowly, without effort, the same words and sentences will flow from your own mouth when you speak. One of the hardest truths to accept in the journey of learning English is that fluency takes time. We live in a world where everything feels instant. Instant food, instant messages, instant results. But language is not instant. It is a process, a journey that demands patience and persistence. Many learners give up too soon because they expect fast results. They want to speak fluently in weeks or months, and when they realize it doesn't happen that quickly, they feel discouraged. But the reality is, fluency is like building a strong tree. You cannot plant a seed today and expect to sit under its shade tomorrow. You must water it daily, protect it from storms, and wait for it to grow. Only those who are patient enough to keep going, even when progress feels slow, will eventually enjoy the fruits of fluency. Patience is what keeps you calm during the struggles. There will be days when you feel like you're not improving at all, days when you stumble on simple words, days when your sentences don't come out the way you wanted. In those moments, frustration can easily take over, but patience reminds you that these struggles are not permanent. They are part of the growth. Every learner goes through them. If you can accept these difficulties as temporary, you won't quit. Instead, you'll keep moving, trusting that each small effort is bringing you closer to your goal. Persistence, on the other hand, is what keeps you showing up, even when it's hard. Learning English is not about practicing once in a while with high energy and then disappearing. It's about showing up day after day, even on the days when you feel tired or unmotivated. Persistence is the quiet strength that says, I may not see results today, but I know results are building inside me. Every time you repeat a sentence, every time you listen to a podcast, every time you correct a mistake, you are making progress, even if it's invisible at first. And one day, all those invisible efforts will suddenly show themselves in your fluency. Think of a mountain climber. The journey up the mountain is slow and tiring. Sometimes the climber looks up and feels overwhelmed by how far the top is, but they don't stop. They take one step, then another, then another. slowly, step by step, they reach the peak. That's what persistence looks like. When you keep taking small steps in English, speaking a few sentences daily, listening actively, practicing with yourself, you are climbing your own mountain. And just like the climber, one day you will look back and realize how far you've come simply because you didn't give up. Being patient and persistent also protects you from comparison. Too often, learners compare themselves to others. That person speaks so fluently. Why can't I be like them? But what they forget is that every person has their own timeline. You don't know how long that person has been practicing, how many hours they have invested, or how many mistakes they have made along the way. Comparing yourself only steals your energy. Instead, measure your progress against yourself. Ask, am I better than I was last month? Can I say more than I could last year? If the answer is yes, then you are growing. Your journey is unique, and patience allows you to respect your own pace, while persistence ensures you keep moving forward. Another important truth is that persistence builds resilience. There will be moments when you face setbacks. Maybe you try to speak and someone doesn't understand you. Maybe you forget words in the middle of a sentence. Maybe you fail an English exam or feel embarrassed in front of others. These moments can feel painful, but persistence gives you the strength to rise again. Instead of saying, I can't do this, persistence teaches you to say, I will try again tomorrow. That attitude is what separates those who quit from those who succeed. Patience and persistence also help you enjoy the journey instead of rushing to the destination. When you are too focused on becoming fluent quickly, you miss the beauty of the process. But if you slow down and appreciate small victories, learning becomes joyful. Celebrate the first time you introduce yourself in English without fear. Celebrate the first time you understand a full sentence in a movie. Celebrate the first time a stranger understands what you said. These small milestones are signs that your tree is growing, your mountain climb is progressing, and your efforts are working. Remember too that persistence doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean practicing for hours every single day without fail. It means not giving up when life gets busy. Even if you skip a day, persistence tells you to come back the next day. Even if you make mistakes, persistence tells you to keep trying. Even if your progress feels slow, persistence tells you that slow progress is still progress. It is better to move slowly in the right direction than to stop completely. Fluency is not a magic gift given to a few lucky people. It is the reward for those who are patient enough to wait and persistent enough to keep going. Every word you speak, every mistake you make, every effort you give is building your English brick by brick, step by step. The key is to trust the process, stay patient with yourself, and never stop moving forward. So, as you walk away from this moment, remember that learning to speak English fluently is not just about language. It's about transforming yourself. It's about training your brain to think differently, your mouth to move differently, and your heart to believe differently. Every step you take, no matter how small, is building the future you dream of. You don't need to be perfect today, you just need to be persistent. You don't need to know every word, you just need the courage to use the words you already know. The truth is, fluency is not waiting for you in some distant place. It is growing inside you every single day you choose to practice, every single time you dare to speak, every single time you refuse to give up. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll open your mouth and the words will flow. You'll feel the confidence that once seemed impossible. You'll look back and see that all the struggles, all the mistakes, all the moments of doubt were worth it because they led you here. So keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself. Be patient, be persistent, and never underestimate the power of your own determination. Because the day you decide to never stop, that's the day you've already won.